Welcome back to another episode of the Course Creation Incubator Podcast. I'm your host, Gina Anativia, here to get you stoked about your digital course or program and help you build up the course-based business of your dreams. Now, we just got back from Palm Springs where our 10-year-old Tristan was in the 10U tennis sectional. So this is our second time going to tennis playoffs. It's always a blast. We went in the spring and we get to hang out with the tennis parents, and it's a great bunch of kids. And in the first match, Tristan is playing doubles with his good friend Luke, and they are playing these two girls who, how do I say this? Were cheaters. They would call balls out before they even hit the court, and were just blatantly calling line calls. Just, they weren't truthful. And Tristan and Luke literally lost an entire game because of these line calls, and more because of this match. And they were ahead, and then they got down, or these girls got caught up to them, because it wasn't just the line calls, but it was a big part of what was happening with the match. And then a USTA official got called over to the match because word got out about the really bad line calling. Well, the great thing was I really saw Tristan and his partner's grit and determination. They didn't get down. They could have easily just lost their momentum and been disappointed or focused on the line calling or the games they had lost as a result. And they picked themselves back up. The match ended up going to a tie break, and the boys won. So their grit and determination and their honesty, because the thing was, the boys weren't doing bad calls. They were being honest. And I didn't even know this. There's a thing in tennis, because I guess tennis is one of the only sports where you're doing your own calls, right? So there was an article that just came out about how bad it is in college tennis about calls. And this is going to be a lifetime, or this is going to be a career thing for Tristan in terms of the calls. But him and Luke are so honest. And honesty won, and good morals won over, which I love. And seeing Tristan persevere just made my weekend. Anything else that happened after that was gravy. So it was an incredible weekend to see him keep his head up and continue to be determined despite whatever was going on. And by the way, a lot of hooting and hollering, a lot of cheering. You know, you think tennis is a quiet sport, but there was a lot of noise going on, and they just cleared out the distractions and went for it and won. So it's been a busy end of the year. That's just one story. It's just one thing that's happening with us, Tristan doing the playoffs, the tennis playoffs. And I haven't even had a chance to think about next year. And am I the only one, by the way? Have you thought about next year? And what do I want for my business? Like, this is such a great time to look back and then look ahead to see what's possible and to take stock in what was super great about the year and maybe didn't go as planned, and what you want to switch up, knowing that you're kind of getting a fresh slate and thinking ahead in terms of maybe not the next 12 months, but the next 6 months. So regardless of when you're listening to this podcast, if you want to reset, this is a great episode to help you do that. Because I sat down with my business coach yesterday and I said, I haven't thought about next year at all. I haven't thought about the next 6 months. What do you got for me? And we literally had 15 minutes left in our call to look ahead. And she asked me 5 questions that I'm going to share with you today to help you plan ahead, to help you see the road ahead, to look back, debrief. We have to debrief everything, right? We were debriefing that tennis weekend with Tristan's coach and he said, okay, what was great about it? What do you think we need to improve on it? I'm a big fan of debriefing any significant event, and especially in terms of our business. So I'm going to walk through these 5 questions as part of this episode. So I want you to plan ahead. I want you to see the road ahead. All right. So question number 1 is, what went right in terms of your business, in terms of your courses or your digital programs? And for me, right off the bat, I got out of my own way and I started to put out some really great marketing packages this year and offering different services officially and putting them out there publicly. Now, for you, it could be that you're putting out a course for the first time, or maybe you tried out a workshop, or you put together some consulting packages and they started to gain momentum. Maybe you published a video series, or you got on a summit that landed you a nice bunch of leads. Thinking about where you saw success and that you want to build on in the upcoming few months. Okay, so it's first question, what went right? Then the second question, I want to ask it with a smile on your face, because we're not going to get down, right? We're not going to go doom and gloom. We're going to keep it positive. What went wrong? And we're going to laugh at the end of it, right? Like, hey, this didn't turn out exactly the way I had planned. So for us, I did a whole tripwire episode talking about a low price point strategy in terms of a tripwire. And I talked about our tripwire. We had an entire strategy mapped out and it didn't go the way we planned. Now, don't get me wrong, we sold tripwires. Like in that way, it worked. But when I think about the outcome was to get quality leads further down the line, that didn't go as well. That's where it went wrong a little bit. Or by the way, if you don't like this idea of wrong, right or wrong, another way to phrase this question is, what went away that you didn't anticipate it was going to go? So for some of you listening, maybe you did a launch and didn't go as well as you had hoped. I talked to some of you who said, you know, Gina, I had this launch planned, a first launch for my course ever, putting myself out there. I got 5 instead of the 15 or 20 that I wanted. It felt like a disappointment. Okay. Or maybe you put out something for list building. Maybe you spent time on an opt-in or a new lead magnet and you didn't get the traffic or the qualified leads that you were really looking for. So whatever it looks like, it didn't go as anticipated. Maybe you had high hopes or high expectations for something and it went awry, right? Or maybe you realized the people that you were attracting weren't the right people that you really wanted to serve. Now, we're asking these first 2 questions because we're going to use this knowledge as we head into the next 6 months, right? Now, the third question is, what's a significant event that happened? Let's figure out one. That was an achievement or a disappointment, or maybe it was both. There were highs and there were lows. Maybe you published a book. Maybe you officially got on the speaking circuit. Maybe you launched a podcast, or you got your subscription program that you've been talking about for 2 years and you put it out there. Maybe you held your first event. Those are all significant events. So I think a significant event for us was doubling down on this podcast and giving it more love. Another significant event was relaunching my website. I talked about that 2 episodes ago. I'll link to it in the show notes. That was huge for us. We hadn't done a new website in years and years. So that was a significant event and it was an achievement. So talk about achievement and disappointment, right? You got to listen to that episode, but there were some disappointments in how long it took and in the process. But overall, I feel like it's an incredible achievement and an amazing event that happened to us this year that I'm so grateful for, that I'm going to carry that momentum into the next 6 months. So figure out, what did that look like for you? What was that significant event? Hiring was another significant event for us. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, and then the fourth question, what are the lessons learned? Now, for me, I learned about the audience I really wanted to serve. And by the way, those last 3 questions were kind of the look back. Now we're going to look ahead with these next 2 questions. So I learned about the audience I really wanted to serve because I started out with a specific audience in terms of my courses and then our agency side of the business. And now I'm getting a better and better idea of who is best for me to work with, for the team to work with. And speaking of the team, I also learned that I need to rely on them more and not be the boss of everything. For the first time, I have someone running my operations day to day, and it's been tough. I'll be the first to admit, Rona is my director of operations, and I never thought of myself as a control freak, but I guess I kind of am. And it's been difficult for me to let go of directing clients and different aspects and projects of the business And I know that in order for me to grow, and let's be honest, have some headspace and have some zen, I need to let my team take over more. And I'm starting to really see that happen because I had to learn that lesson. So for you, I'm curious, what are the lessons you picked up along the way this year? So I had one student say to me that she didn't spend enough time on list building. Okay, it's a good one. It's one I hear a lot. Sometimes we're focused on building our courses and not as much building up our audiences. Or I had a client say, I have too many low price courses, and meanwhile, I'm not making enough money because it's just like these $17 pings here and there. And meanwhile, my audience wants a high ticket, and that's where she could really make some money because that's what they're asking for. So thinking through what are those lessons? I mean, I think it's kind of fun to think through the lessons. There's sometimes hard lessons. I named 2 lessons that were kind of hard for me, but they're so useful in moving forward because based on those lessons, question 5 is, what's the passion path moving forward for you? So based on those lessons learned, what are you really passionate about? What lights you up? And how do you find more of what lights you up? So I talked about that audience, right? And really digging deep into that audience because that lights me up. And workshopping with that audience really lights me up. That's what I was talking about with my coach. So for you, it could be a specific mission or a group of people or a specific workshop you want to teach. So the question is, how do you get more of that in the next 6 months? How do you do that? What lights you up? Where's your zone of genius and happiness? What do your people really want? And how do you want to deliver it? So important. So I'm telling you, it takes 15 minutes, not even to go through these questions. Maybe have someone interview you, like I did this with my business coach. As part of the process, sit down and do this time in review, and let's look forward. Then beyond the 15 minutes, think about sitting down and coming up with a plan based on question 5, what's the passion path? And I want you to think about who, not how. There's that great book by Dan Sullivan. It's all about who you need to bring into your life, into your business versus how or the steps. So I was thinking for my own step 5 or question 5, who can I have a brainstorm session with? Who do I need to bring in to coach me? Who can advise me on this? Or maybe what special training do I need from this specific person? So that's kind of phase 2. After you've gone through these 5 questions, spend 15 minutes brainstorming. So think about who can help you in the next few months. Maybe it's me. I would love to coach you. We have our Done For You packages, our VIP half days, and of course, our 6-week accelerator, where you can get your course, your starter course out to market in 6 weeks. So think about who can help you get there. Oh, one last thing. You can do these 5 questions for different categories. So for example, we went through your overall digital business in this episode, but I could have went through these questions for my podcast. What was great? What went wrong? What was a significant event? Maybe a significant event was I had an incredible guest on that I never thought I would land, right? And then so on. What were the lessons learned? What's the passion path forward for the podcast? You could do these 5 questions for building your audience. You could do these 5 questions for your money, right? We had Serena Shoop on, I'll link to that episode, and knowing your numbers and doing a look back and a look forward in terms of your numbers for your business. And then you just repeat the process. You repeat those 5 questions. I'm hoping this was helpful for you. DM me on Instagram or send me a message on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss one single episode. Please leave me a review if this podcast has made an impact on your life. Until next week, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.